The market was full of noise. Bright lights, alien voices, and the smell of metal and smoke filled the air. Traders shouted prices, buyers argued, and strange creatures moved through the crowd. But in one dark corner, away from the busy streets, there was a small cage. Inside the cage sat a little girl. She was not human. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes large and silver, glowing faintly in the shadows. She looked thin, weak, almost broken. A heavy chain was locked around her neck, and her small hands clutched the cold iron bars. She was just a child. But to everyone in that place, she was worth nothing. The traders whispered about her. Defective, one said.
Her lungs do not work.
She will die soon, another replied. No one wants a broken thing, a third voice added with a cruel laugh. The girl heard their words, but she did not cry. She had cried many times before, and no one had listened. Now her tears were gone. She only sat in silence, her breath shallow. Every inhale a fight, every exhale a whisper of pain. Most buyers walked past her cage without even looking. Some stopped for a moment, curious, then shook their heads. Not worth the credits, they said. She cannot work. She cannot fight. She cannot even live. But then someone stopped. A man, a human. He was tall, wearing a simple jacket covered in dust from travel. His eyes were sharp, but there was a kind light inside them. Unlike the others, he did not look at the girl with disgust. He did not laugh at her weakness. He only looked at her, silent, as if trying to see something the others had missed. The trader hurried forward. Sir, do not waste your time. This one is broken. Her people left her here because she is useless. Take a look at the stronger ones, the healthy ones, but the man did not move. His gaze stayed on the girl. She looked back at him, nervous but curious. For the first time in a long time, someone's eyes did not feel like knives. What is her name? The human asked. The trader laughed. A thing like her does not need a name. But if you must know, her people called her Yira. Yira, the man repeated softly as if the word mattered. The trader shrugged. She will not last more than a week. Her lungs are weak. She cannot breathe our air for long. She coughs blood at night. Believe me, sir, she is a waste. The human ignored the warning. How much? He asked. The trader was surprised. You want her, why? She will die in your hands. How much? The man repeated, firm this time. The trader sighed and named a small price, almost as if he was selling garbage. The man paid without another word. A moment later, the cage door opened with a rusty screech. The girl flinched. She was used to pain, not kindness. Slowly, she raised her head. The chain around her neck rattled as the man stepped closer. He unlocked it and threw it aside. The sound of metal hitting the ground echoed louder than the crowd. The girl stared at him, confused. She whispered in a weak, broken voice, "Why?" The man bent down so his eyes met hers. His voice was calm, steady. "Because you are not nothing." For a long moment, the girl did not move. No one had ever said those words to her. To everyone else, she was worthless, a mistake, a body waiting to fail. But this human, he spoke as if she mattered. The man reached out his hand. The girl hesitated. Her thin fingers trembled, but at last she touched his palm. His grip was gentle, steady, strong enough to tell her she was safe. As he helped her out of the cage, the crowd stared. Some shook their heads, whispering that the human was a fool. Others laughed, betting how many days the girl had left before she collapsed. The man did not care. He walked away, the child leaning weakly against him. Each step was hard for her, but she tried, because for the first time someone believed she was worth more than nothing. The market faded behind them. The noise, the laughter, the cruel whispers all disappeared. Ahead was only silence and the unknown. The girl coughed, clutching her chest. Her breath came short, painful. The man tightened his grip, steadying her. He knew the truth, her lungs were failing. Without help, she would not survive long, but he also knew something else. He had skills, knowledge, and a determination stronger than the laws of the galaxy. He had not saved her just to watch her die. As the stars shone above the station, the man whispered to himself, "I will find a way." The girl, weak and trembling, heard him. For the first time, hope flickered inside her. Maybe, just maybe, she was not nothing after all. The small room was quiet except for the sound of coughing. Yira lay on a narrow bed, her thin chest rising and falling in weak, uneven breaths. Every inhale was a battle, every exhale a small victory. The human sat beside her, his hand resting on the edge of the bed, his eyes watching her carefully. He had brought her away from the market, away from the chains. But freedom did not mean safety. Her lungs were broken. They could no longer carry the air she needed. And each day her life slipped closer to an end. The man knew this. He had known it the moment he saw her in that cage. Yet he did not turn away. Instead, something inside him refused to give up. She opened her silver eyes slowly. "Why?" she whispered. The human leaned closer. "Why what?" "Why save me? I will not live." "You know that?" The man was silent for a moment. Then he said softly, "Because you are still alive, and while you breathe, I will not let you die." Yira looked at him with confusion. All her life she had been told she was worthless. Her own people had abandoned her, calling her a mistake of nature. Now this stranger, this human, spoke as if she had value. She did not understand it, but she wanted to believe it. The human's name was Kale. He was an engineer, a traveler of many worlds. He had fixed broken ships, machines, even old alien weapons. But now, sitting in that small room, he faced a problem no one else dared to solve. A broken life. He studied Yira's shallow breaths, the way her body trembled, the way her lips turned pale each time her lungs failed. He knew the truth: ordinary medicine could not help her. Alien doctors had already given up. But Kale was not like them. He began to plan. On the desk beside the bed, he spread out his tools. Metal parts, wires, tubes, and glowing energy cells. He sketched designs on scraps of paper, drawing strange shapes, rewriting them, tearing them up, and starting again. Hours passed. Days passed. Still he worked. Yira watched him sometimes, too weak to move. She wondered why he tried so hard. Other times she closed her eyes and listened to the sound of his tools, the steady rhythm of a man who refused to stop. One night, Yira woke suddenly. Her chest was heavy, her breath caught in her throat. She tried to inhale, but air refused to come. Panic filled her eyes. "Kale!" She gasped, clutching her chest. He was at her side in seconds. He lifted her up, his hand on her back, trying to steady her. But her body shook violently. Her breaths were broken, sharp and painful. "Stay with me," Kyle said firmly. His voice did not shake, but inside fear burned. He could not lose her, not now. Yira's vision blurred. Darkness pressed against her. Her small hand gripped his sleeve as if holding on to the last thread of life. "No, I can't," she whispered weakly. Kale's jaw tightened. His eyes shone with fierce determination. "Yes, you can. Listen to me. You are not leaving. Do you hear me? You are not leaving." He grabbed a small device from his desk, pressed it against her chest, and the machine hummed with energy. A soft pulse spread into her lungs, forcing air inside. Slowly, painfully, she began to breathe again. Her eyes opened, tears streaming down her face. She coughed hard, then finally her breathing steadied, weak, trembling, but alive. Kale held her gently, his arms steady around her. "I promised you," he whispered. "I will not let you go." When the storm of fear passed, Yira lay back on the bed, exhausted. She looked at Kale with wide, silver eyes. "Why fight so hard for me?" He sat beside her, his hands still shaking, though his voice was calm. "Because no one else will. Because you deserve a chance." She blinked, confused. "A chance?" "A chance to live," Kale said firmly. "A chance to be more than what they told you. They said you are nothing. I say they are wrong." Something stirred inside her chest, something more than pain. A spark, a warmth, hope. From that night on, Kale worked with even greater fire. His hands moved quickly, his mind sharp. He designed a machine unlike any the galaxy had seen before. Not a weapon, not a tool, but a pair of lungs, artificial and alive, built to replace the broken ones inside Yira. Every day he tested new parts. Every night he adjusted his plans. Failure came again and again, but he did not stop. His heart refused to break, even when success seemed impossible. And as Yira watched him, something inside her began to change. She was still weak. She still coughed blood. But now she tried to stand when she could. She tried to take small steps. She tried to fight, not because she believed in herself, but because she believed in him. Kale noticed. He saw the way her silver eyes no longer looked empty. He saw the way she clenched her small fists when pain came, refusing to give in. One evening, as the stars glowed outside the window, Kale looked at her and said, "You are stronger than you know, Yira." She smiled faintly, her voice soft but steady. "Maybe, because of you." Kyle shook his head. "No, because of you. I am only giving you the chance. The rest you must take yourself." And so in that quiet room a battle began. A battle against weakness, against despair, against the laws of nature and the rules of the galaxy. Kale fought with his hands, building a miracle. Yira fought with her spirit, refusing to let death take her. Together, they became something the galaxy had never seen before, an engineer and a broken child, bound not by blood or law but by hope. And in the silence of the night, Kale whispered to himself, "She will live." No matter what it takes, Yira heard him, and for the first time in her life she believed it. The galaxy was wide, full of countless worlds, each ruled by laws older than memory. Some laws changed from planet to planet. Some were made by kings or councils. But above them all there was one law, the law of the stars. It was a law no one dared to break. It was written by the Galactic Council long ago, after wars that nearly destroyed whole civilizations. The rule was simple. No species may change the body of another. No machines, no experiments, no mixing of blood. To break this law was to spit in the face of nature. To break this law was to challenge the council itself. The punishment was death. Kale knew this. Every time he tightened a bolt on his secret design, every time he connected a wire or tested a glowing cell, the words echoed in his mind. No species may change the body of another. He could hear the voices of the council, cold and merciless. A crime against the galaxy, a crime against nature. But then he looked at Yira. The small alien child lay on the bed, her breaths shallow, her eyes tired but filled with growing hope. And Kale told himself the law's wrong. She deserves to live. Word spread quietly. The space station was small, and whispers moved faster than light. Traders spoke of a human who had taken in a worthless child. Engineers spoke of strange parts being bought in the market. Circuits, filters, energy cores. Why does he need those things? Someone muttered. Humans are clever. Perhaps he builds a weapon. No, I think he builds something else. Something dangerous. The rumors reached the ears of officials, and officials, fearing trouble, sent a message to the council. One morning, Yira sat up slowly, watching Kale work. His hands were steady, his eyes sharp with focus. She tilted her head. "You know it is forbidden," she whispered. Kale paused but did not look at her. "I know, if they find out." Her voice trembled. "They will kill you." Finally, Kale looked at her. His face was calm, but his voice carried fire. "If they find out, they will punish me. But they will not take you again. I swear it." Yira's silver eyes filled with tears.
Why risk everything for me?
Kale leaned forward, his voice soft but unshakable. "Because life is worth more than law, and you are worth more than nothing." The words struck deep inside her. She had been told she was worthless, a mistake, a burden. But Kale said it as if it was the most natural truth. That same day, the station trembled. A ship had arrived, black and silver, marked with the emblem of the Galactic Council. Its engines glowed with authority, its shadow falling over the docking bays like the wing of a great beast. The inspector had come. The inspector was tall, wrapped in a cloak of white and gold. His face was sharp, his eyes cold as stone. He carried no weapon, but he did not need one. The law itself was his sword. He walked through the station with slow, heavy steps. People bowed their heads, afraid to meet his gaze. Whispers followed him like smoke. They say he can smell crime. They say no secret hides from him. They say he has sent whole families to the void. The inspector said nothing. He listened, he watched, he asked questions. And slowly his path led toward Kale's small room. Inside, Kale worked faster than ever. His design was nearly complete. The artificial lungs glowed faintly on the desk, 2 small chambers of steel and crystal, connected by tubes that pulsed with energy. A machine not meant for war, but for life. Yira touched the edge of the device, her fingers trembling. "It looks alive," she whispered. Kale nodded. "It will breathe for you. It will give you the air your body cannot." For a moment her eyes shone with hope, but then fear returned. "Kyle, if they find this, they will not," he said quickly. "I will finish it. I will make it work. And when you breathe again, when you stand strong, then let them come." But the door hissed open, a shadow fell across the room. The inspector stepped inside. His cloak shimmered, his eyes cold as the void. He looked at the desk. He looked at the device. Then he looked at Kale. Silence filled the air. Kale stood slowly, his body tense, ready. Yira's heart pounded. She clutched the sheets of the bed, too weak to move, too afraid to speak. The inspector's voice was quiet but sharp. You know the law, human. Cale's jaw tightened. He did not look away. I know the law. Then you also know the punishment. Yira's breath caught. Her silver eyes filled with terror, but Cale's voice was steady, strong as steel. I also know this child is alive, and I will not let her die. For the first time, the inspector's cold face shifted. Surprise, anger, perhaps even curiosity. You dare? The inspector asked, his voice low, dangerous. Cale took a step forward, standing between Yira and the inspector. His eyes burned with defiance. Yes, I dare. The room seemed to tremble. The law of the stars hung heavy in the air, sharp as a blade. One step more, and Cale would be an outlaw, but he did not move back.
He did not bow.
His heart refused to break, and behind him Yira whispered, weak but steady. He gave me life. The inspector's eyes narrowed. The machine on the desk hummed softly, a small miracle waiting to be born. The choice hung in the air, law or life, death or hope. The galaxy would not forgive Cale, but Yira's second chance had already begun. The inspector's visit left the room heavy with fear. After he left, Yira sat silent on the bed, her silver eyes filled with worry. Cale stood at the desk, staring at the half-finished device. The machine hummed faintly, glowing with a soft light like a heartbeat waiting to begin. They will come back, Yira whispered. Her voice was thin, almost fading. They will not let you do this. Cale's hands tightened on the edge of the desk. Then we must finish before they return. Her chest rose weakly, then fell again. Each breath was a fight, a reminder that time was short. Cale knew the truth. If he waited too long, Yira would not survive. That night, the station outside was alive with noise. Ships docking, merchants shouting, guards moving through the halls. But inside the small room, there was silence. Only the faint buzz of tools and the shallow rasp of Yira's breathing. Cale worked without rest. He adjusted wires, sealed joints, tested energy cells. His hands were quick, steady, but his eyes burned with the fire of desperation. At last, he lifted the device. The artificial lungs glowed with a pale blue light. Tubes coiled around them like veins, and the chambers pulsed gently as if already alive. Kyle carried it to Yira's bedside. It's ready, he said. Her eyes widened. Fear and hope clashed inside her. Will it hurt? Cale knelt beside her. His voice was calm, though his heart pounded like thunder. Yes, but it will also save you. Do you trust me? For a moment, silence filled the air. Then Yira reached out with her trembling hand and touched his wrist. Yes. The surgery began. Kyle laid out his tools on a tray. He placed a mask over her mouth and whispered, breathe slowly. Sleep will come. Yira's silver eyes fluttered. The last thing she saw was Cale's face, serious, determined, but gentle. Then the world turned dark. Cale worked quickly. He opened the fragile shell of her body, careful not to damage what little life remained. Her real lungs were weak, shriveled, barely able to hold air. He removed them with steady hands, though his heart ached at the sight. Sweat dripped down his brow as he placed the artificial lungs inside her chest. The machine glowed brighter, its tubes connecting, its chambers fitting into place. Cale whispered to himself like a prayer. Work. Please work. He closed the incision, sealed the wires, and connected the final piece. The device hummed, waiting. Then came the silence. Yira's chest did not rise. Her body lay still. The machine glowed but did not move. Cale's breath caught. Panic surged inside him. No, not now. Not after everything. He pressed his hands against the device, adjusting wires, forcing energy into the chambers. Breathe. He shouted, his voice breaking. Breathe, Yira. Still nothing. Then at the edge of despair, the machine pulsed. A soft glow spread through the tubes. The chambers contracted, then expanded. Yira's chest rose, then fell. Cale froze. His heart hammered. Again, he whispered. The chambers pulsed a second time. Air filled her body. Yira's chest rose again. Then came the sound. The sound Kyle had dreamed of, the sound he had fought for. A breath, strong, steady, alive. Her silver eyes opened slowly. She gasped, then coughed, but this time her voice was not broken. I can breathe, she whispered. Cale let out a shaky laugh, tears burning in his eyes. He gripped her hand tightly. Yes, Yira, you can. The air felt different now. The small room was no longer filled with despair, but with something brighter. Hope. Yira sat up slowly, touching her chest. She felt the rhythm of the machine inside her, strong and steady. For the first time in her life, she did not feel weak. She did not feel broken. Cale watched her carefully, afraid it was only a dream. But the glow of the device was real, the rise and fall of her chest steady. She was alive, truly alive. She turned to him, her silver eyes shining with tears. "You gave me life." Kyle shook his head gently. "No, you already had life. I only gave you the breath to keep it." Yira's lips curved into the faintest smile. It was the first time Cale had ever seen her smile. But the moment of peace did not last. Outside, footsteps echoed through the hall. Voices rose, sharp, commanding. The inspector's men were returning. Yira's smile faded. Fear returned to her eyes. "They know," she whispered. Cale stood, his face hardening. "Let them come." He grabbed a small tool from his desk, a shock rod, more weapon than instrument. He placed himself between Yira and the door. The glow of the artificial lungs lit the room behind him, proof of his crime. The door hissed. The soldiers entered, their armor shining, their weapons ready. The inspector stepped in after them, his cloak gleaming in the dim light. His cold eyes fell on Yira. He saw the glow in her chest, the steady rise and fall of her breathing. His lips tightened. "It is true," he said softly. "You broke the law of the stars." Yira clutched the sheets, fear freezing her body. But Cale did not move aside. His voice was strong, steady as stone. "She breathes," he said. "That is all that matters." The inspector's gaze hardened. "Then you are guilty." Kyle's grip tightened on the shock rod. "If saving a life is guilt, then yes." "I am guilty." The air grew tense. The law demanded punishment. The soldiers raised their weapons. But behind Cale, Yira whispered again. Her voice no longer broken but strong with new breath. "He gave me life." The words hung in the air like a blade of light against the darkness. The room was silent except for the steady hum of Yira's new lungs. The soldiers stood in the doorway, weapons raised, their armor shining under the station lights. The inspector's cold gaze swept over Kyle, then to Yira. His lips curled in disdain. "She should not be alive," he said flatly. Kyle tightened his grip on the shock rod, his stance unshaken. "But she is." The inspector's voice was sharp as glass. "You have broken the law of the stars. You have dared to change the body of another species. Do you understand what that means, human?" Cale did not look away. "I understand that she is breathing. That is all I need to know." The inspector's eyes narrowed. He raised a hand. The soldiers surged forward. Cale moved fast. The shock rod crackled with energy as he struck the first soldier, sending him crashing against the wall. Another fired his blaster. But Cale ducked, swinging hard and knocking the weapon aside. Sparks burst as the rod clashed against armor. "Kyle!" Yira cried, clutching the sheets. Her chest glowed faintly, the rhythm of her breath steady but quick with fear. Cale fought with everything he had, but there were too many. A soldier struck his side, another slammed into his back. He fell to one knee, teeth clenched against the pain. The inspector stepped closer, calm and unhurried, as if the outcome was already decided. "You cannot win. The law cannot be broken without punishment." Cale forced himself up, blood on his lip. "Then punish me, but leave her." The inspector's gaze flicked to Yira. She met his eyes, silver against stone, and for the first time she did not look away. "This child is proof," the inspector said coldly. "Proof that humans cannot be trusted. Proof that compassion leads to chaos. She will live, yes, but she will live as evidence of your crime." He raised his hand again. The soldiers struck Cale down. Yira screamed as Cale hit the floor, the shock rod falling from his grasp. His hands were bound in glowing restraints, his body dragged across the room. He did not fight now. His eyes found Yira's, steady even in defeat. "Stay strong," he whispered hoarsely. Tears burned her cheeks. She tried to rise from the bed, but her body was still weak. "No," she cried. "You can't take him." The soldiers ignored her. The inspector turned to leave, his cloak sweeping behind him. Cale was pulled along, a prisoner now. The door hissed shut, leaving Yira alone. The glow of her new lungs lit the empty room. Hours passed. Yira sat curled on the bed, trembling, her breath echoing in the silence. She pressed her small hands against her chest, feeling the strong rhythm within. It was Cale's gift, his crime, his miracle. But now he was gone, taken to face judgment before the Galactic Court. She could imagine the cold chambers, the merciless judges, the final sentence. They would not forgive him. Her people had once told her she was worthless. The galaxy said she was nothing. But Kale had given her life. He had risked everything, and she could not let him face death alone. Slowly, painfully, Yira stood. Her legs shook, but she stayed upright. Each breath was strong, steady. She was alive. Truly alive. Her silver eyes hardened with new fire. "I will not lose him," she whispered. The corridors of the station were quiet at night. Shadows stretched long across the walls. Yira moved carefully, her steps soft but determined. She pulled a cloak over her head, hiding her face. Every step felt heavy, but she pushed on. Kale's words rang in her memory. "You are not nothing." At the docking bay, she saw the council's ship. Black and silver, engines glowing faintly. Guards stood at the ramp, their eyes sharp, their weapons ready. For a moment, fear froze her. She was just a child. She was weak. What could she do against them? Then she pressed a hand to her chest. The hum of the artificial lungs was steady, strong. Kale had given her this strength. Now she would use it. The next day, in the heart of the galaxy, Kale was brought before the court. The chamber was vast, filled with towering pillars and alien judges cloaked in silver. The air was cold, heavy with judgment. Kyle stood in chains, but his back was straight, his eyes unbroken. "You are accused," the high judge declared, "of violating the law of the stars. You altered the body of another species. Do you deny this?" Kale's voice rang clear. "I do not deny it. I saved a life. If that is a crime, then I am guilty." The chamber buzzed with voices, shock, anger, disbelief. The judges pounded their staffs for silence. The high judge's eyes burned. "Then you shall be punished." But before the sentence could fall, the great doors burst open. A small figure stepped into the chamber, her cloak falling away. Gasps filled the air. Yira stood there, her chest glowing faintly with the rhythm of the artificial lungs. Her silver eyes blazed. Her voice was strong. "Stop!" The judges froze. The soldiers hesitated. Yira stepped forward, trembling but unbroken. "You call me worthless. You said I was nothing. But she pointed at Kyle, her voice rising. "He gave me life. He gave me breath. He gave me a second chance." The chamber fell silent. Every eye was on her, the child who was not supposed to live standing tall before the council. Kyle's chains clinked as he turned to look at her. For the first time since his capture, his lips curved into the smallest smile. The Galactic Court was a hall of stone and light. Pillars reached into the sky, banners of 1,000 species hung from the walls, and the air was heavy with silence. At the center stood Kyle, chains glowing around his wrists, his head held high. The judges, 12 of them, each robed in silver, watched from their thrones. Their faces were stern, their eyes sharp as blades. To them, Kale was already guilty. But then the doors had opened and Yira walked in. Gasps filled the chamber. She was supposed to be broken, worthless, dying. Yet here she stood, small but steady, her chest glowing faintly with the rhythm of artificial lungs. Each breath she took was proof of Kale's defiance. The judges leaned forward. One whispered, "Impossible." Another muttered, "A violation beyond forgiveness." But Yira's voice rose, clear and steady. "He gave me life." The guards rushed to block her, but Kale spoke first. His voice carried across the hall. "Let her speak." The high judge, an old being with skin like stone, slammed his staff against the floor. The sound echoed like thunder. Silence. But the chamber did not fall silent. Whispers rippled through the crowd of onlookers. Merchants, travelers, citizens who had come to see justice. They stared at Yira, at the miracle before them. The high judge's eyes narrowed. "Child, you should not be here. Return at once." Yira shook her head, her silver eyes bright. "No, I will speak. You must hear me." She walked closer, her small feet echoing on the marble floor. Each step was heavy, but she did not falter. She stood beside Kale, lifting her chin toward the judges. "You call him guilty," she said, her voice trembling but growing stronger. "You say he broke your law, but if he had not, I would be dead. My own people abandoned me. You all said I was nothing, but he looked at me and saw more." Her words struck the chamber like lightning. Kale turned his head, watching her with quiet pride. The chains cut into his wrists, but his spirit was free. One of the judges, a tall alien with eyes like fire, leaned forward. "Child, the law exists for a reason. If every species begins to change others, the galaxy will fall into chaos." Yira met his gaze. Her voice cracked, but she forced the words out. "What is worse, chaos, or letting a child die because she was weak? Is the law more important than life?" The hall stirred. Some nodded. Others frowned. The High Judge's voice thundered again. "The law is absolute. Without it, there is only ruin." Kale stepped forward, chains clinking. "Laws are made to protect life. But what good is a law that kills the innocent?" The tension grew thick. The judges argued in low voices, their words sharp and heated. Meanwhile, Yira turned to the crowd, the ordinary people who filled the edges of the chamber. Her silver eyes shone as she spoke, her voice no longer trembling. "Look at me," she cried. She pulled back the collar of her cloak, showing the faint glow of the machine inside her chest. "I should be dead. I was nothing. But this human refused to let me die. He gave me breath. He gave me hope. Would you call that a crime?" The crowd erupted in whispers. Some shouted, "She speaks truth." Others muttered in fear, "It breaks the law. It cannot be allowed." The High Judge raised his staff, calling for silence. His eyes burned into Kale. "Human, you do not deny your crime. Do you beg for mercy?" Kale's voice was steady. "I do not beg. I chose to save her knowing the cost. If that makes me guilty, then I stand guilty. But I will never call it wrong." Yira's hands clenched into fists. She stepped in front of Kale, shielding him with her small body. Her voice rang out louder than ever before. "Then I am guilty too," she shouted. The chamber froze. "I accepted his gift," she said. "I live because of him. If that is a crime, then punish me as well. But know this," her voice shook with fire now, "if you destroy him, you destroy the only reason I am alive. And what will your law mean then?" The judges were silent. For the first time, doubt flickered in their eyes. The High Judge's hand trembled slightly on his staff. He looked at Yira, then at Kale, then at the murmuring crowd. The chamber was shifting. Law against compassion, rule against life. A younger judge whispered, "Perhaps the law must bend." An older one snapped back, "If it bends once, it will break forever." The argument grew louder among them, but in the center of the storm stood Kale and Yira, man and child, guilty by law but innocent by truth. At last, the High Judge struck his staff again. The hall shook. "Enough. The sentence will be decided at dawn." Soldiers stepped forward, pulling Kale back in chains. Yira reached for him, but the guards blocked her. Still, their eyes met, hers blazing with determination, his calm and unbroken. "Stay strong," Kyle whispered again. "I will," Yira answered. Her silver eyes burned with fire. That night, as Kale sat in a cold cell, Yira stood outside the court, staring at the stars. She touched her chest, feeling the steady hum of the machine within. The galaxy wanted to call her nothing. The law wanted to call him guilty, but she knew the truth. He had given her life, and now she would fight for his. The dawn came slowly over the Galactic Court. The chamber filled again, shadows stretching across the marble floor as light poured through the high windows. Crowds gathered, whispering about the trial of the human and the child who should not be alive. Kale stood in the center, still bound in glowing chains. His face was tired but unbroken. Yira stood near him, her small figure dwarfed by the size of the hall, but her silver eyes shone bright. The faint glow of her artificial lungs pulsed with every breath, a living symbol of his so-called crime. The judges entered, their silver robes flowing like rivers of cold light. The High Judge raised his staff and silence fell. "The night has passed," he said, his voice echoing. "Now the court will deliver judgment." The crowd leaned forward, breathless. Yira's heart pounded. Kyle's eyes remained steady. The High Judge spoke again. "The law of the stars is clear. No species may change the body of another. The human Kale has broken this law. By our rule, the punishment is death." Gasps rippled through the chamber. Yira's hands clenched at her sides. She wanted to scream, but her voice stuck in her throat. Then the judge's tone shifted, colder still. "But before sentence is carried, the court will hear final words." Kyle lifted his head. His chains rattled as he stepped forward. His voice was strong, carrying across the vast hall. "I do not deny what I did. I gave this child new lungs, new breath. I saved her life. If that is a crime, then so be it. I would do it again. He turned his gaze to the judges, then to the crowd. You call it chaos. I call it compassion. You call it forbidden. I call it hope. If your law demands that I should have watched her die, then your law is wrong. The crowd stirred, voices rising. Some shouted, "He speaks truth." Others hissed in anger. The chamber shook with division. Then Yira stepped forward. Her small voice rose above the storm. You all saw me before. Broken, dying, worthless. My people left me to rot because I was weak. But he... She pointed at Kale, her hand trembling but her voice firm. He gave me breath. He gave me a second chance, her words cut through the noise. The hall grew quiet as if even the pillars listened. Tears glimmered in her silver eyes, but her voice grew stronger. He did not just save me. He showed me I am not nothing. If you kill him, you kill the only truth I have ever known, that life is worth fighting for. She turned to the crowd. Tell me, what kind of galaxy lets a child die when she can be saved? What kind of law fears hope? The chamber erupted. Some shouted in agreement, others in outrage. But no one could ignore her. The judges whispered among themselves, their voices sharp, their faces torn between anger and doubt. The high judge raised his staff again. Silence! The law is clear. It does not bend for one child. If we forgive this crime, others will follow. The galaxy will fall into ruin. But another judge, younger, rose from his seat. His voice trembled but carried weight. And if we do not forgive, we kill hope itself. The chamber froze. The young judge pointed at Yira. Look at her. She is alive because one human dared to defy us. Is that ruin or is that salvation? The judges argued, their voices clashing like thunder. For the first time in centuries, the court was divided. The high judge's face darkened. He struck his staff. This human is guilty, he declared. But the child lives. That cannot be undone. The law demands punishment. Kyle closed his eyes, ready to accept his fate. But Yira ran forward, standing between him and the judges. Then punish me too, she cried. Her voice rang across the chamber, sharp as a blade. If he dies, I die with him. Because without him, my life means nothing. He gave me this chance. I will not let you take it away. The crowd roared. Citizens shouted in anger and fear and hope. The sound shook the walls of the court. The judges looked out and saw not silence, but rebellion. The high judge hesitated. For the first time, his hand trembled. The law was absolute, but the people no longer believed it. At last he spoke. His voice was heavy. The law remains. The human is guilty, but the galaxy has seen the child. The people have heard her. We cannot kill hope. He raised his staff, lowering his head. The human will not be executed. Instead, he is cast out, banished from all council worlds. He will live, but as an exile. Gasps filled the hall. Kale lifted his head, surprised. Yira's eyes widened, tears spilling down her cheeks. Banished but alive. The chains dissolved. Kale stepped forward, free once more. Yira ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. Her voice shook with relief. You live. Kyle held her close, his hand resting on her glowing chest. And so do you. The crowd roared again, some with anger, some with joy. But in that moment, nothing else mattered. Later, as they walked out of the court together, Yira looked up at him. You are banished now. Where will we go? Kyle smiled faintly. Anywhere the stars take us. The galaxy is wide, and as long as you breathe, we have all the time we need. She held his hand tightly, her silver eyes shining with new strength. For the first time in her life, she was not afraid. She was alive. She was more than nothing. She had been given a second chance.